Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tribal Council podcast. We're on this podcast. Survivor represents our life, and when it is gone, so are we. My name is Ethan Kronk, and I'm joined by my co-host Connor Boudreau. How are you doing today, Connor?
Um, Doing pretty good. This is definitely an episode in Survivor history, and we're going to talk about it for well, all of its lack of better words, moments.
Yeah, and actually, before the video begins, uh, 90% of viewers, or wait, only a small percentage of viewers are subscribed to the channel. So never mind. I'm not doing the Mr. Beast shit. Uh, let's talk about Stephanie. Stephanie, did she get screwed by Mr. Beast? Did she not? Was she going home anyway? That is the question. I'm inclined to believe that she was going home anyway, but the fact that there was a little bit of like a scramble, I guess, after Rick Devens flipped the coin, kind of suggests that maybe he was in danger, but also that sort of thing will just happen. People want to, after a big thing like that happens, reconfirm plans, even if it's just voting out Stephanie. And at the end of the day, it makes sense to me that Stephanie would have gone home regardless. Her and Jonathan were trying to gun for Ozzy and Sari, which just inherently is gonna put you in danger on the season. Apparently, uh, people seem to believe Rick's story surrounding everything, so I just don't see any reason why Stephanie wouldn't have been the boot. Um, but you know, maybe she got screwed over by Mr. Beast. And if anyone was gonna get screwed over by Mr. Beast, I'm not upset that it's Stephanie. I guess. But what do you think, Connor? Who do you think? Do you think she was going home anyway, or do you think Mr. Beast sent out Stephanie?
Um, I think it's a little hard to tell. Like you said, there was some convincing evidence to support that the scramble, right? Maybe that was an indication that Rick might have been the plan anyways. Counterpoint, why does that scrambling suggest that it had to have been Rick more than just we have to make sure everyone actually is aware of what is going to happen? And honestly, I think Rick was going to be the backup vote. I think Stephanie was going to go home and Rick was going to catch some votes in case of like some idol shenanigans, right? That's the only logic I can really come to where I think Rick was going to get enough votes that like any world if he goes home. However, we'll never fully know. What we do know is that at the end of the day, Stephanie made a couple of statements that really shot herself in the foot, and we're never going to help her anyways. Saying in front of the entire jury that I would never drive a plan, that I would never throw out someone's name like that, is never going to win you $1 million. There's just no world in which you can get to the end of the game more often than not have thrown out a single person's name and actually be considered a legitimate threat to win or a genuine contender. So I think more than anything, the way that Stephanie played the entire round is what got Stephanie here more than the twist itself.
And on top of that, at the end of the day, even if she wasn't technically going home here, if not for Mr. Beast, there were 10 people, I believe. 9 people? 9 people, I think. No, 10. 10 people. One of them was immune. One of them was Stephanie, which means there were 8 other people who could have gone home. Actually, 2 of them were immune. So there were 7 other people who could have gone home aside from Stephanie. Stephanie, Tiffany, Emily, Jonathan, Ozzy, Aubrey.
Oh,
Rizzo and
Tiffany was
Suri.
immune.
Tiffany was immune. Right. For some reason, I thought Joe won immunity, but you're right. Tiffany was immune. So Joe, Emily, Jonathan, Ozzy, Aubrey, Rizzo, Suri, all in danger. All could have gone home, but it was Stephanie. So at the end of the day, she clearly made some mistakes along the way. She definitely put herself into a bad position to survive this tribal council. And you could argue that the twist kind of was the nail in the coffin for her, but you can't argue that she didn't dig her own grave a little bit at the end of
And
the day.
so we're clear on this. That isn't us saying, "Oh, the twist is God forgiven," right? Like it's not up and okay, got rid of Stephanie. It's safe. We're gonna get to judging that later, but I think we can agree the twist itself wasn't the thing that sent Stephanie home. It was just the last action in a chain of multiple actions that led to the torch snuff.
And as far as the aspect of the twist where like someone could potentially earn immunity at tribal council, I don't necessarily hate that as a twist inherently. Again, it's one person getting immunity, even if they're the one person who likely would have gone home, you still then have to be essentially the backup plan, the person that everyone's willing to sacrifice in that situation in order to go home. So I don't think it's the worst twist in the world. I don't think it's screwing over anybody who's like well positioned to win the game ultimately. Um,
Yeah.
that aspect of the twist, mind you. There are other aspects of the twist, like Connor said, that we'll get into. But
And to your point there, it's almost as if someone played a shot in the dark, right? Hypothetically, shot in the dark. Oh no, everyone voted Rick. Now let's revote. It was Stephanie, right? Technically, in the grand scheme of things, hypothetically, that's just what happened. If you really want to say it like that, you know, that's all that aspect of the twist actually meant. Except we skipped that step because, again, Stephanie made herself enough of a person to be voted out from courses of actions that the end result was that, anyways. Before we had to do this whole Rick Devens winning immunity thing, maybe not, but it looked like it, anyways.
yeah. As for Stephanie as a whole in the season, I didn't really care for her coming into the season. This season didn't give me too much to really sway my opinion on her one way or another. She was kind of just there. So, I guess I came into the season not really liking Stephanie that much. And, I'm not really all too upset that she's gone. Um, moving on, talking about Joe. I actually
Tiffany,
think,
bro.
oh my god.
Dog. She's so invisible that we forgot she existed. Haha.
Well, yeah, no, fucking no. How do you know Tiffany didn't move up on my rankings? Tiffany's number one now. She's winning the season. Uh,
Oh, yeah. No.
Tiffany. Tiffany didn't really get a whole lot. I think maybe we got the first mention of Tiffany as a potential target this episode, and it was a very brief thing, and it was only because they were showing literally everyone be mentioned as a target this episode. Funny enough, she probably would have been a good target for someone like Stephanie. But that never really went too far. Aside from that, I don't know. She was here. She got two confessionals, so she definitely existed. But she wasn't a super important character this episode. Did she get anything in the auction? I don't remember Tiffany getting anything.
In the auction, I want to say no as well. Yeah, nothing that I can remember other than like the obvious. Everyone got their letters, hooray! But like,
Yeah. Well,
I'm
well,
95% sure she did fuck all in the auction. Unfortunately,
unfortunate. I would have liked to see her continue to go after Emily, but didn't happen. So, is there anything really to talk about with Tiffany? Or is she just at the bottom where she always is, and this is another episode where they just didn't give her a lot of content to work with?
I mean, it's really hard to add much to a player that technically could still get New Era purpled, and like we did the math. She'd have to get 3 episodes of Zero, make the finale, not get another confessional for the rest of the season. My question to you: do we genuinely think that's possible?
No, but you know. So I think she'll come out of the season, pretty still pretty underedited. Obviously, there's no situation. Maybe from the last 3 episodes she gets like 40 confessionals. We can say that she wasn't underedited, but all in all, regardless of how the rest of the season goes for her, she's woefully underedited, and it's very unfortunate because she's a very entertaining and, in my opinion, likable player. But at the end of the day, the edit is what it is, and we're just here to kind of look at it and give our thoughts on who to look out for as a potential winner. And Tiffany is just not somebody to look out for. But I don't think she's getting 0 confessionals for 3 episodes straight for the last 3 episodes of the season. I don't think they would do that to anyone, let alone on season 50. And I was gonna say I guess crazier things have happened, but I don't think that's even true. I don't think crazier things have happened than the last 3 episodes of the season, someone getting 0 confessionals. Um, Moving on, and actually talking about Joe, and I actually kind of found Joe this episode kind of interesting. Apparently he had no idea who Mr. Beast was, which is pretty funny. I had to imagine this was a surreal experience for him. He also didn't bet on anything in the auction. He was holding out for something better, and something better never came, which means there isn't as much to talk about with Joe either. Um, he had a funny reaction to Rick Devens hitting the coin flip. Everyone else was hyped up and excited, and Joe was just kind of sitting there like, "Damn it! I thought, I thought I might finally be able to get rid of this guy." Joe's hatred towards Rick Devens is definitely funny to me. His honor and integrity in telling Stephanie that she was safe until after the votes were cast, and then telling her, "Hey, by the way, it's you." That that is the true Coach Wade brand of honor and integrity. I think Joe really picked up some things from the Dragon Slayer this season on how to be an honest and integral person. I think between telling Stephanie after the votes were cast that she was the target and quote unquote refusing to write Coach's name down, Jonathan might be the most honest and integral person that we've ever seen on Survivor. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Connor?
You know what? I like what you're picking up on. I think maybe Joe is the next coach. Maybe he comes back and he gets this like villain arc, you know? Maybe he turns into this like super like comical character in a way that allows him to be more entertaining and allows him to play a fairly similar game that he wants to play, right? That worked pretty well for him, right? He got to a finale. That you can't take that away from him. So that would be cool. I wouldn't hate this. I mean, he's already got some funny confessional moments, with mostly Rick related. And he also had a really funny comment at the auction that I know you and I were dying laughing about. The You remember when he said, "The smell of my daughter when she drops ketchup"?
Right.
Does his daughter smell differently when she's killing off condiments' lives? Like, is the death of a condiment all of the sudden release this insane smell that we're unaware of?
I don't know if
Yo, what
it's
was that comment?
I don't know if it's the like mixture of the smell of his daughter and the smell of the ketchup itself, or or if every time his daughter drops drops ketchup, she releases like a pheromone. Um, the ketchup the ketchup dropping pheromone that Joe's able to pick up on. It was a very confusing comment. It's one of those it's one of those things where it's simultaneously bewildering and also kind of weird. Like just kind of the smell of your daughter when she drops ketchup? Why would you say that, dude? It's like it feels uncomfortable and also very confusing and just
And also, we were pissing ourselves laughing at it because what does that mean?
it's just too specific. It's too specific and honestly you're already encroaching onto like kind of awkward territory when you start talking about the smell of another human being. Um so when you combine that with like the weird element of the ketchup and like the action of her dropping it being specific to the situation. But we're talking about the sense of smell, the one's like the one's sense, one of the handful of senses that just do not really make sense in this context. The dropping ketchup, I'm bewildered. I don't understand where he was going with that sentence or what he meant by it. I'm sure he has some fond memory of his daughter dropping ketchup. Also, who drops ketchup? Like, what do you? I don't.
I'm gonna be honest. I think you're reading into it too much. I think what happened is his daughter dropped a ketchup bottle once, and he was just like thinking back at like, how adorable the moment was, but also like, bro, the smell of ketchup when it just like exploded everywhere, probably not that pleasant. So I'm guessing just like this mixed set of emotions that just his sentence jumbled up. He's tired. He's losing his mind trying to deal with Rick Devens because for him that's like level 1000 impossible challenge. So I'm guessing that's just what happened. He had a flub of words, and quite a flub it was.
I mean, he was he was definitely looking back fondly on the smell of ketchup or his daughter or what have you, whatever the situation may be, a combination of the two. I don't know, but what did Aubrey even win? Like, what did she win that mac and cheese? I want
Uh, yeah,
I want to say it was mac and cheese. Does Joe put
yeah.
ketchup on his mac and cheese? Is there a
I don't
connection?
know. Let's get him on the podcast and we'll ask him how he makes his mac and cheese.
Do you put ketchup? Does your daughter put ketchup on your mac and cheese and she drop it sometimes? And does it have a very particular smell? Not that just that situation. I need to know. All this is to say, Joe is probably not winning this season, and I hope her explanation sufficed because I don't. I'm done talking about Joe and his ketchup. Moving on to Emily. um, Emily, Emily is Emily. I don't know. She's there this episode again. Uh, it sucks because they brought back the auction after a really long hiatus on Emily's original season, and I think Emily was probably the most iconic player within that auction. This season, I can't think of like what she won necessarily. Milkshake. She won a milkshake. Talked about how it was gonna give her the runs. I wasn't actually really a fan of that. I don't really want to hear about Emily's
I
bowel movements, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
didn't need to hear that, and then Rizzo followed that up with a funnier comment. So, you know, kind
What
of
did
ruined the moment.
what did Rizzo say?
He said, "You better drink up that milkshake," which I have to assume is some kind of reference, or he's trying to refer to something,
I
or
don't
it just sounds kind of funny.
I
Either
don't
way,
I don't
in
know
comparison to, I think it's gonna give me the runs.
I don't know if he was trying to make a reference, but it has the same energy as Wu in Kagayan. Probably Kagayan. It might have been Second Chances, I guess. When he says, "Oh yeah, get a fat dip of that guac." Just
Yeah, I yeah. It's just kind of a silly moment where it's like, haha, thanks Rizzo. You just moved us past this awkward. Oh, this milkshake's gonna give me the runs. Why? I didn't need to know about your survivor bowel movements.
she's trying to channel
I
her inner Christian.
Dog, I didn't enjoy it when it happened to Christian, although it was funny at least for him. I didn't enjoy it when it happened to Liz. We can go through the list of times people have mentioned bowel issues on Survivor. None of them are entertaining, other than like maybe specifically Christians.
Yeah. And I mean, Christian at least actually shat himself. I don't need to hear about hypothetical shits. That's not. It's just not necessary. Um, strategically, Emily was here. I'm having trouble kind of remembering the complicated dynamics of everything because all different kinds of people were throwing out all different kinds of names. I don't really remember Emily specifically throwing out crazy names. I know that she's still working really heavily with Rick Devens. She her and Rick kind of had a little bit of a moment where they were like, "How are we allowed to play this game together? We're crazy. We're chaotic. We're you know cuckoo bananas." I don't remember Emily doing anything cuckoo bananas this episode, but maybe I'm just drawing a blank.
I mean, I wouldn't really add to that and say, "Oh, you're missing something crazy here," because like again, she got a couple of confessionals pretty early into the episode that didn't really, in the grand scheme of things, contribute to much because most of it was just, unfortunately, commenting on what Devins was saying. Uh, and it basically just felt like a one-sided conversation where she was just an echo. The edit didn't really give her anything to be really excited for going forward.
We can get her throwing out Ozzy's name again. That came from um, Jonathan mainly. And then, and then the target swapped from fucking Ozzy to Suri to Aubrey to everyone was a target. Jonathan, I'm sure Stephanie was definitely a target. But I just don't really remember Emily being a part of that or being part of like pushing a specific name super hard. So, and overall, she's had so many ups and downs this season as far as her gameplay has been concerned, and her edit has really highlighted some of the downs. She's just not a likely contender at this point. On to somebody who used to be a lot higher on my rankings. Jonathan Young tried to make a move here. It failed spectacularly. He lost his closest ally. Need I say more? I mean,
The only positive that you can really put to that entire statement is the fact that he himself didn't get voted out for this actions is, I guess, a good thing because, well, obviously he's still here, and like somehow he didn't get voted out for this. I just don't understand how the fuck he didn't get voted out for this. Like,
a-
why not,
actually,
Jonathan?
I listed him as somebody who was a target. That kind of I said it, and then I realized I don't know that he ever actually was. Um, and yeah, no, I don't think he was ever really specifically targeted, which is kind of weird. You'd think he'd be considered more of a challenge threat at the very least than someone like Stephanie. So all else being equal, he might be a more reasonable person to target. My guess, but, and well, I would think that this would apply just to some extent to Stephanie as well. I don't think that anybody out there is viewing Jonathan as like a super major jury threat. I think he's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. He has come off cocky and arrogant and condescending and unpleasant, and maybe that's playing a role where people are just like, Jonathan's not going to win. The jury's not going to like Jonathan. We don't got to worry about him. He'll throw names out and cause a mess. Unfortunately, he's just not very good at it. So maybe he's not somebody that people are super just concerned about winning the game. As opposed to Stephanie, I guess, who had a vote steal. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm really trying to scram something together here. But yeah, I, I don't know. I don't know why he was never a target. Maybe just because he's bad at the game and nobody feels the need to target him. And Stephanie is better to some extent at the game.
You know what? I have a theory. I think the reason Jonathan wasn't targeted is because he ate the sea slug. That's it. That's my entire logic. They said, well, we could target this guy, but he
Ozzy
homied
was
up
too
and ate a sea
grateful.
slug for me. Yeah. No, I think that's what happened.
I'll
I
accept
think
that
Ozzy
answer.
said, you can stay another day, peasant, on my island.
Um, what I will say is I think that the fact that Jonathan wasn't targeted at all is not actually a good look at all. Because I do think it's emblematic of the fact that he's just not considered a threat. I think about like Xander, who like on season 41, all throughout the season, you watch and you go, why is nobody targeting this guy? He's he can win if he makes it to the end, right? Like why is nobody targeting him? He makes it to the end, no shot of winning. Turns out nobody saw him as a threat. Nobody respected his game all that much, and he just wasn't gonna ever win that season. And that's kind of what I'm thinking about Jonathan, which slots him in is a pretty easy, like maybe even zero vote finalist contender, maybe second place if it's a particularly disappointing final three, I guess. um, so not a winning edit. Moving on to Rick Devens. This was obviously a great episode for Rick Devens. Finally, somebody who's very interesting to talk about in the context of this episode. Obviously, very much sort of the main character. Starts out the episode as a pariah. Goes to the auction. Is very entertaining. Mr. Beast shows up. What's going on with Mr. Beast? Uh, Rick Devens is a little bit concerned that he's going to be a target, but then he's approached about maybe voting on Ozzy, and all hell breaks loose as he just reveals any and all information that's given to him. He lays everything out at tribal council in a very entertaining and dramatic way. Um, and then obviously Mr. Beast comes out with that coin, asks if anybody wants to flip it. I kind of immediately knew that Rick Devens was probably going to volunteer, and he did, and it was awesome. He flips it. Thank the fucking Lord. He gets the result that he needed to stay in the game. And then he gets an idol, immunity at this tribal council, and the prize pot doubles. Phenomenal episode for Rick Devens. I don't know about from an edit perspective how much of that you can really credit him for. A lot of that is just what happened and stuff that they needed to show. But at the very least, his stock has to go up to some extent, and Jonathan just had a terrible episode here, so I move Rick above Jonathan. Um, Ultimately, though, you gotta be able to look past this amazing episode for Rick Devens. or at least what feels like an amazing episode for Rick Devens, and actually take a look at the edit, where I don't get the impression that Rick Devens is likely to win, but I also don't see anything like super concrete to say like there's no way Rick Devens can win. Don't even consider him as a contender. So kind of just lands in the middle of this list, where I think he belongs. But what do you think, Connor?
I think with Rick, there's a lot of ups and downs, and I find lately it's a lot more ups at times where it's like he really doesn't get the benefit from it because again he only got 3 confessionals. It wasn't like a super spectacular episode for the actual, or not, sorry, he didn't get 3 confessionals, but Rick gets 8 confessionals, and a lot of them are talking about, oh, this is what happened last tribal, blah blah blah. I'm dangerous now. I'm gonna do these crazy moves, and then the crazy moves in question. I don't know how much you can really say, oh, that was a Rick Devens crazy move, more than just, oh, Survivor had other plans and you benefited from it. You know? Good
I
for
mean,
him taking advantage of the fact that there was the game to be played, but
laying it out at Travel Council, going through every single conversation that he had, and explaining exactly how the entire round went for him from his perspective to everyone to everyone very publicly at Tribal Council, just completely exposing every single person who spoke to him that day, including himself. That's a crazy Rick Devens move, and I don't think Mr. Beast had anything to do with that. So
yeah, but what does that actually do for his edit? What is it? Or, like, it just makes him more chaotic, which is what we want. We want to see this. It's more entertaining. But does that mean he's going to win? I don't think it does. I think it helps a little bit, but it doesn't, fault the wrongs of the fact that he lost his best ally very recently. The fact that he's fairly on the bottom and, could be used to make a big move, but it won't be his big move. He'll be just the accessory for it. And Devins also throws out Rizzo's name during this process. That was the person he wanted out. Where was any mention of Rizzo going anywhere this entire episode outside of that one moment where Devin throws his name out and then we never circle back to it?
we circle back to it at Tribal Council, where it's like a big part of the whole, you know, Rick Devens even admitting like things that he was saying and giving his story more credibility because he's willing to be fully honest and even admit that he had targeted Rizzo, and then Rizzo even appreciating it as in contrast to Stephanie, who just denied, claimed that she would never start the push on a person, um, and like the more cowardly gameplay of Stephanie when contrasted against Rick Devens being bold and like honest, like when he needs to be, and uh kind of admitting that he had put Rizzo's name out as a target. And that's kind of where we circle back on it. If you want to talk about the edit, the fact that he lost his closest ally doesn't inherently mean anything for his edit, because that's just a thing that happened on the island. The fact that it's all about the framing, right? And as far as the framing is concerned, I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think it's good for him. Um, that's why he can't really be put any higher on this list. But the framing of everything for him this episode, the fact that he goes, okay, it's time for me to really let loose and start playing crazy, and that's exactly what happens. That's good framing. The fact that we see him target Rizzo, I get what you're saying, where like it wasn't really portrayed as a super serious contender to go home, but then we do circle back on it in a way that I think frames Rick Devens in a positive light, especially in contrast to Stephanie, the person who went home this episode. So I think there are definitely good things to point out about Rick's edit this episode. Um, and overall throughout the season, his edit has been kind of up and down, kind of mediocre ultimately. Um, but there's definitely more positives for me than negatives this episode when compared to someone like Jonathan, who I do think had some negatives to his edit. Emily, eh, you know. But no, I think that there were a couple decent boons to his edit this episode for sure.
Yeah, I did also want to point this out because I thought it was really funny. We learned something during this episode from Rick Devens. You can, in fact, fall off the entire obstacle of the challenge during the transition if it's not live, and Jeff will just not care.
I mean, if it's not a live transition, like that is what that means.
Yeah, we'd never seen someone like actually just like dead ass fall off the obstacle like that and then just have to go back on it in just the same way that it happened. And I thought that was kind of funny because it's just like a random little, oh hey, we got to see this actually happen on screen, you know?
I mean, usually if it's not a live transition, people just jump off. So I feel like if anything, everyone else was being weird because everyone else was treating it like a live transition for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was really funny that we got to see the way that it happened with Rick because he tried to keep himself in it, and it was actually like a valiant effort to stay on, slips off, just gets back on, keep trying to cruise in. You know, it's pretty funny.
Hell yeah. Moving on, talking about Ozzy Lust. Another episode where Ozzy is a significant target, but just does not go home because his closest ally, Suri, works her magic. Um, it wasn't even like between him and someone else. It was probably between Rick Devens and Stephanie at the end of the day. And then even after Rick Devens flips the coin and is safe, Ozzy's not really an option, right? So Audrey randomly catches Stephanie's two votes, and everyone else votes for Stephanie. So honestly, pretty awesome for Ozzy. The fact that there can be this big plan put into motion to snipe him from the game, and he can come out of it completely unscathed. And you have to give Suri most of the credit for that, but you can also give Ozzy some credit for aligning himself with Suri. Definitely a smart decision on his part, clearly. Again, his game is going to come down to can he play this game without Suri? Because if not, he's going to have to go to the end with her, and he's just going to. There's just zero possible chance that he beats her. But if he can take her out and figure out a way to play the end game on his own and make it to the end, I think he has a very real chance from a gameplay standpoint. And from an edit standpoint, he was considered a pretty significant contender for a while, and well, he's definitely gone down quite significantly. Especially given he's been portrayed as just completely reliant on Suri, and that is just not a good look for a winner of the season. Um, he's had some pretty decent qualities to his edit from time to time. He's also had some, you know, not as great episodes for sure. But I think he's still 100% a contender to watch out for. Um, I just think he's probably the weakest of those contenders. But what do you think about Ozzy so far this season, Connor?
I think with Ozzy, there's a couple of things that I want to start with that kind of show up as interesting facts for me. The amount of times that Jeff's gone, oh, he can tie the record, and he hasn't, bro. Jeff, stop. We've heard you say it enough. We get it. Ozzy's going to tie Boston Rob before Joe does, and I'm going to lose $10. It's okay. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm probably not. Second thing that I want to point out before I really get too much into it. Um, this is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the lowest Ozzy's ever spent on an auction in his entire Survivor career. I thought that was interesting. Yeah. And this time, we had an unknown purchase from Ozzy that he himself confirmed on social media. So thank you, Ozzy, for giving us the information that you spent $80 on cupcakes that you didn't eat, and that's why you got a cheesecake. Um, Now back into important stuff for Ozzy. Ozzy just doesn't happen to get voted so many times now that I'm going to make a bit of a bold prediction. I think the winner's move, based off what we predict right now, if it goes to the person we think it'll be, I think their final big move of the season will be letting go of Ozzy. And I say this because I feel like it makes a lot of sense. We keep seeing Ozzy like clearly being targeted, clearly being targeted. Cerise says no. Ozzy's safe. Ozzy's being targeted. Ozzy's being targeted. Rick blows things up. After Cerise says no, and Ozzy's not even the plan when Stephanie steals Rick's vote. You know, I just he has this way of finagling out of it this season, which Ozzy doesn't tend to do this ever. He gets targeted, he loses immunity, he goes home, even when he has an idol. It's just the course of Ozzy Lust's Survivor career. You know, he loses immunity, or lack of his losing immunity, decides his fate in the game. And for once, he's not. And I think it's going to matter. Will that be true? Couldn't tell you yet, but I think we've seen glimpses of how this absolutely could come into play in his pure reliance on the trio he has, and more specifically, Sari. So maybe it's a bold guess, but I think that's going to be something we come back to at like final five, final six, maybe seven, that Ozzy gets let go. And that's the only thing that really holds him out of being like top two for me is just the how does Ozzy navigate the end game when Ozzy has been targeted so many times already? That's a difficult world to see in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, from an Ed perspective, the fact that he's just portrayed as so helpless without Suri is just not a good look. So that's really what's keeping him down for my rankings. Um, now moving on to Aubrey, I think Aubrey got one particularly really good confessional this episode that is kind of single-handedly putting her in this top tier of contenders. The callback to Co Wrong and Aubrey losing to Michelle and Michelle understanding kind of Aubrey kind of understanding kind of what Michelle did in order to earn that win and wanting to replicate it to some extent and saying, look, I'm gonna really put my foot on the gas in the end game here and start making some big moves. We're gonna have to see some sort of follow through on that, probably next episode for me to feel super confident about it. But that just feels like setting up for a winner. Um, Again, her edit throughout the season hasn't necessarily been the greatest at times, so I'm not ready to call her my number one contender by any means. But that one confessional was just really strong potential winner content. Um, the thing with Aubrey is like her likelihood of winning and how badly I actually want her to win is probably the highest of anyone here as far as just being someone who I don't really care to see win, but probably has a really good shot. I don't know. I feel like there's a difference between, somebody having a winner's edit and somebody having a good winner's edit. Aubrey has a winner's edit, in the sense that if she were to win, I wouldn't be surprised. And I can see how they kind of built this edit around her as a potential winner, but it would be a very unsatisfying winner's edit to me. And I just can't imagine that there's much that could happen within the last few episodes that would make me really want to see Aubrey win. And it's just a shame because, she's third on this list. She's got a decent shot, and if she wins, I think she's one of the less satisfying possible options left in the game. And that makes me sad, because I did like Aubrey on her original season, and I haven't really seen too much to really be super excited about with Aubrey this season, and maybe these last three episodes something massive will happen. She'll pull some crazy move, take out Sari, take out Ozzy, take out Rizzo, and become the clear favorite to win. I just wish that she was given some sort of storyline up until this point that wasn't, Genevieve, fuck Genevieve, she's a bitch, and then Genevieve goes home really for no reason that had anything to do with Aubrey pulling some grand move or outsmarting Genevieve in some interesting way. Uh, just not a very satisfying edit, but one that I could very, very much see leading to a winner. But what do you think about Aubrey?
Um, First, quick little side quest of facts that I thought it was interesting. First off, last woman standing from Vatu. Second, she made also a different Koran callback that I wasn't sure if you noticed. Aubrey said spelled my name wrong, which is reference to Sydney because people don't know how to spell names. Uh, and
I get it.
third thing, this happens with a couple of different people. Um, Stephanie's one of them, but or was sorry, not Stephanie's one of them. Aubrey's one of them, and Cerie's one of them. We spent exactly $480. In an interesting split of money that I thought, why exactly $480? So, Loki, I'm not saying the auction was rigged so that everyone had $20 left at the end, but hey, just keep in mind, all of them suddenly had at least $20 left at the end. Just saying. Um, into the more important stuff with Aubrey. Again, there's some merit to having an interesting winners edit that also makes me want to put someone higher. I completely understand why you think it would be an unsatisfying edit. I completely agree that it wouldn't be the more entertaining edit of outcomes we could have that are even less likely winners, right? I think Rick would be a more entertaining winner. I'll even go so far as to say I think there's a world where I could say Jonathan could end up with a better winner edit, even though there's just a significantly much lower chance he actually wins at this point. That being said, Aubrey just happens to always have enough good that the bad is weighed out enough, or that I don't remember it, or that it's not that important. And again, things like that flashback sequence, right? Learning from past mistakes is going to be important for the season. That and adapting to, hey, here's the 18,000th twist, which none of the twists seem to have tripped up Aubrey yet. Really. Like, there's been some inherent luck she's gained from these twists, right? Getting to get Genevieve out the way she has, getting the boomerang idol, the way that that connected her with people, and then how she adapted around that. The fact that a tribe in the first swap didn't really have to go to a tribal where she maybe was on the bottom, right? There's been some things that have kind of been in the back of my mind screaming, okay, this all piles up. And I would say there's better contenders than Aubrey. I agree with you on that. But she's definitely very high because with all of that good, just a lot less bad comes to mind. It's boring, maybe, sure. You know, I do have to give credit where credit's due, though. It's clean, it's simple, it's basic, but it's getting the job done, right?
Yeah, I just feel like whether intentionally or not, they've poised her as somebody that the audience is going to want to root against. They put her up against Genevieve, and again, like she put herself up against Genevieve, sure, but like they really made the choice to highlight that. They didn't show Aubrey really have any good reason for disliking Genevieve as much as she did. they showed Aubrey kind of making unnecessary comments potentially about Genevieve. They showed Genevieve going home in a light that didn't really make it feel like you could give Aubrey too much credit for it. And then they've just kind of shown like the greatest hits of Aubrey moping around, not wanting to be there in her confessionals, and I can't imagine that's all she's delivering. So it's just a little bit confusing to me why they're editing her this way when I simultaneously see um kind of the skeleton of a winner's edit. Something that could very easily resemble a winner's edit, even if it's not a very good one. It's just a little bit frustrating to me because if she does win, I will be somewhat disappointed, and I have her third on my list, and that's just not a fun prospect. But if there's anything you want to add, you can add it, and then I'll let you introduce our next player.
No, I don't have anything to add other than it's time to speak about the man, the myth, the legend. RIZGOD, Riz God, baby. That's right. He's back up at number 2 on the list. I actually have him one spot lower, but we're going to pretend that that's not the case because, it is what it is. What is important is Rizzo, once again, in a great spot. Good alliance. His name got brought up. And it was, as we've discussed, a very good moment to be like, haha, you are a legitimate threat from someone's perspective. That's always a good thing. Don't receive votes. No one really also jumping on the bandwagon of it. That's not a bad thing, right? Yeah, there's maybe better ways everything could be pictured, sure, right? But I wouldn't say it's anything to really write home about, worry about. And again, he just constantly adds fun filler content that we can, laugh about. Little comments here and there. One I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of was him pointing out that, Savannah Louis is not Survivor's biggest and more favorite newscaster to Rick Devens. However, I would agree. But that's not necessarily important either. What is important is that his edit continues to show us reasons why he could win from the perspective of being a legitimate threat, having some winning agency, having played a good strategic alliance game, having navigated a couple of difficult twists, you know, season 50 as a whole just being, let's throw shit at the fan and see what sticks. And he seems to find a way to dodge it and just squeeze through the cracks, right? The strategy that he mentioned a couple episodes ago. Let's find where I can break into this game and make my impact. And I guess, Stephanie isn't necessarily the most impactful thing you can do. Christian is a pretty big impactful move. And that wasn't just his move, it was the move of his trio. So that's the only real big drawback that I think I can't not point out is Rizzo is in a trio. But most of the big moves have been made by someone else in this trio, more so than him. He's contributed to them. He's made a big part of the decision, I'm sure. And yeah, he's even thrown out some of the names. However, I need to see him really take a hold of this game, really make the big shot or have like the clear cut edit moments that we're looking for before I will put him number 1.
Mm, yeah. My only comment about Rizzo is only one confessional this episode is a little bit unfortunate. But it still leaves him with 33, which is not anything to scoff at as far as the total is concerned. And he still doesn't have a single skunk, unlike Sari, unlike Joe, unlike Jonathan, unlike Rick, and certainly unlike Tiffany. So that's a positive for him, even though he only got one confessional this episode. His overall confessional count is still looking pretty good. Um Also the newscaster thing, I thought that was something that Jeff said and then he was just like, take that, Savannah Louie, because like that's
He
kind of like
did. And I was like, Why, man? Bro, she's your homegirl. You didn't have to do her like that.
Yeah, Connor, it's called sarcasm.
Nah, bro.
It's like Dwight. It's like because Jeff said a thing, and he's saying take that, Savannah Louie, because he's like, wow, I can't believe Jeff would say that when Savannah
Nah,
Louie
he's got to stand
exists.
up for her. That's my take.
That's what he was
I
doing
think it would have
with
been.
what he was saying.
Nah, I think he should have been more bold about it. Like, nah, Savannah's better. You know, I think that'd been pretty cool.
I think that would have been really cringe. But anyways, moving on to
What?
number one, and it's of course Suri Fields. I don't know. Same as always. She completely dominated this vote, that's for sure. She had complete control, it felt like, throughout the entire episode. If she wanted Rick Evans to go, Rick Evans would have gone. If she wanted Stephanie to go, and she did, Stephanie goes. Um Hell, if she wanted Aubrey to go, that is almost certainly what would have happened. Uh but you know, crazy that at the final 10 of Survivor 50, Suri just has complete control. That's insane. I never would have thought this possible. I would have thought there's no way they let Suri get away with this, but she's just too good at this game. She's too good for this game, and that's just being portrayed so strongly through the edit that like she's either gonna win or whoever the hell manages to take her out is gonna win. And I think that at this point is just a fact. You might not have Suri at number one on your list. You might not think that she is going to be the winner of the season, but whoever you do think is going to win the season better take out Suri, better be directly responsible for Suri's elimination, because if she is not the winner, that is exactly what's going to happen, and I am very confident about that. Um, and this episode just continued to solidify how much control Suri has, how much skill Suri has, how amazing Suri is at this game, and how much she deserves to win the season. It's just a matter of, is that actually going to happen? But what do you think about Suri, Connor?
First things first, two fun facts. Given the results of today's, or not today's, this week's episode, she is the only person immune during the blood moon to still be here, and is, sorry, that's not true. Wait, is it true? Yes, every person that won the blood moon immunity has been gone. Now, cool, fun fact. Just want to point that out before I forgot. More importantly for Suri, she is the only HVV representative still in the game. Which checks, right? It tracks. What did it take to get rid of 3 back in HVV? A winner making a great read with an advantage. Except here's the best part about Suri Fields season 50. For the first time ever, Suri has an advantage of her own. She has her own power that is beyond that of just her words, which seem to do God's work. The amount that she's been able to pull off with just her words in all of her many, many trips through Survivor, it's insane. And yet, she has more than normal. She has an insanely good trio, two of which have an idol, which, by the way, is a third of the remaining players. She has an extra vote, and outside of Rick Devon's hidden immunity idol that everyone knows about, she knows and has control of every other advantage in the game, indirectly or directly. That's insane. Who let this woman have so much power? Oh, wait, the Survivor gods, because she was due. And this is the time where I don't care anymore. I love people more than Sari as a player, but god damn it, let her have it. Give it to her. Crown her now. This is the time, if there was ever going to be one, that we have Sari win. And as you mentioned, if she goes home, whoever takes her out, the other win the season. All right, chalk it up, right? That's that is simply it. I think at this point is just Does Suri get to the end? Yes, she wins. No? All right, who took her out? Okay, they win. It's boring, but like, sure, that's just exactly what I expect to happen at this point. She just, it's unbelievable. And yet, I say that after watching her first season. It's unbelievable how well she does, all things considered, right?
She
Just
was
the lady
scared
who
of
got up off the
leaves.
couch, right? She was scared of leaves. And now she's been on Survivor for like a billion days and she won the Traitors, spoiler alert, Big Brother competed on, did phenomenally well at, all things considered, you know,
Yeah, she
considering who
ran the house
Suri
for a
is.
little bit.
Yeah. Suri just has this unbelievably difficult to understand and like impossible to process ability to just convince you that everything she wants is exactly what you want.
Hell yeah.
I bet you she could sell a bike to someone who has no legs and no arms. That's how good Suri is at convincing people of things, right? She could sell you a boat in a landlocked state. There's just no telling what's next for Suri except winning. So why not this time?
Nice try, but people love boats for like lakes.
Fine, I'll take their water too. Now we're still selling a boat because Suri says so.
Okay, you're taking away their lakes. Just okay, sure. I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Sell a boat in a try selling a boat in a desert. Only Suri could do that. Uh, yeah. That being said, not much else to talk about as far as the players are concerned. We still haven't really quite gone in on Mr. Beast, and all I have to say is that there's a lot of results oriented discussion around the Mr. Beast um twist, I guess. I think his appearance on the show was fine, better than I ever would have expected it to be. He was very respectful of Survivor as a show and as a game, and very came off very humble. I'm not gonna say he was very humble because I don't think he actually has too much humility in his heart to begin with. But he had a very humble air to him. He came off very humble, and the whole thing was fairly pleasant. The twist itself, um, by far the worst twist of the season from a conceptual standpoint, from a game design standpoint. The idea that anybody could go home on a coin flip just inherently is always sucks as an idea on Survivor. When you combine the fact that if nobody had volunteered, they were going to go to rocks, and Jeff didn't expect anyone to volunteer, it's just kind of crazy. If Jeff didn't expect anyone to volunteer, I don't know what he expected, because let me ask you this. Would you rather take a 1 and 2 shot of going home, just straight up going home, um, with the caveat that if you don't go home, you get an idol, I guess. Or would you rather take a 1 and 9 shot of going home by via drawing rocks? Uh, realistically, I don't know that I don't know that the flipping the coin is worth it there. I don't know that the idol is worth um cutting your odds of going home that significantly.
I'm confused by the 1 and 9.
Rocks.
Well, rock. I thought it was rocks to decide who did draw the coin flip.
All Jeff said was that they'd go to rocks if they didn't
Oh,
if nobody volunteered to flip the coin. I don't know if that meant to be eliminated or to flip the coin, but even if it meant to flip the coin, the idea of somebody being forced to flip that, you know? Um, just any situation where somebody's flipping a coin, and if they land on the wrong face, they're just gone. Their torch is just snuffed immediately. It's not like the 50-50 idol where it's like you're only playing this because you know you're already in danger, and the only way you go home, even if it misses, is if you actually were in danger. Like, it's not the coin itself isn't sending you home, it's just providing you safety or not. Uh, the idea of a coin toss actually directly sending someone home, terrible. Should not exist in Survivor. Shouldn't that idea shouldn't even be flirted with on Survivor. Shouldn't be toyed with. By far the worst twist of the season. The result itself was awesome. Rick Evans flipped it, got it correct, has an idol now, was able to survive this tribal definitively no matter what, and doubled the prize pot, which is always exciting. At the end of the day, though, that doesn't mean that the twist is good just because the outcome of the twist was good. Just like the outcome of a twist can be bad, even if it's not necessarily a terrible, terrible twist. Like the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol. A lot of people don't like how that played out, and I am inclined to agree with those people. At the same time, I think it's a pretty inoffensive twist. I don't even think it's particularly that much of a deviation from things that we've done before that worked out perfectly fine. So, at the end of the day, yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the whole Mr. Beast twist. I think it was the worst of the season, and it's just the outcome was disproportionately awesome when you look at the twist on paper, and a lot of people are letting that cloud their judgment.
Yeah, and I can kind of add to this a little bit by saying at no point should I want someone's game to be decided by something that isn't one of the following outcomes. They're removed from the game for otherwise reasons, right? Example, season 39. I'll leave it there. They're removed from the game for reasons such as personal choice or quitting. You shouldn't quit Survivor. You chose to be out there in the first place. However, sometimes, I guess, one instance, I'll understand it. Maybe two.
Well, in the
You're
game,
medevaced,
yeah,
that's a fair reason, right? Or you pull yourself for medical reasons.
yeah.
Sure. And then otherwise, some kind of vote result at tribal council, which would include Suri on Game Changers. Unfortunately, that is part of the game. I guess it's the exception to my list. I would argue, but like you chose to tie a vote and you chose to go to rocks. That was a choice that you made. You chose to vote this person and you got voted out. That was a choice you made. You chose to keep all of your advantages all for the end, and somehow Suri got screwed over by it. Tough for Suri, but at least it was within the realm of a reasonable reality. What is not to be expected as a reasonable reality on Survivor? Someone flips a coin and their torch is snuffed. That is not a reasonable expectation you should make when you go on that beach
Opening
on
up
day one, that
that
your entire game 20 days later will be decided on a coin flip.
that goes for choosing. That goes for opening boxes too. That goes for choosing and opening a box.
Oh, it's the
Uh,
same bullshit. Yeah, it's a category of how the fuck did this get through multiple members of production and we still identified this as a reasonable idea. No one on Survivor should be eliminated because of a coin flip or a 33% chance that should have been 66. Technically, it's like 65.4 if you actually are really going to be that whiny specific person. Moral of the story, you should not have this. It's not Survivor at this point. This is now a math problem that I can teach to a kindergartner. That's not Survivor. That's not the show that I have watched 50 seasons of, most of which multiple times at this point in my life. That's just child's play.
Um, uh,
However, I'm going to say also this as well. Uh, do I blame Mr. Beast for all of this? I honestly don't even think this is all his idea. I think he's being set up a little bit. I don't even like the guy. I can't imagine that all of this was exactly his idea as we saw it on screen. I just can't imagine that that's what
well, that's
I
confusing to me.
just
Why can't you imagine that this was his idea? It sounds like exactly the type of thing that Mr. Beast would come up with.
no, we discussed this earlier. The type of thing Mr. Beast would say is, "I have a briefcase. Here's $10,000. All right, who wants to leave the island right now?"
I
That's what
mean,
Mr. Beast would do. That's exactly what Mr. Beast would do. Or he'd be like, "All right, you used to do this challenge on Survivor all the time. I used to watch it because I love the show so much, where you would sit out of a challenge for immunity to eat food. Here's $5,000. For every person that sits out, you get an extra 5,000. Meaning, if all 10 of you choose to not be immune, 100 grand for everyone. Yay! That's a Mr. Beast idea.
all of this was
This
still
felt weird.
all of this was still very in brand, and a significant chunk of this twist is ripped directly from Beast Games. So like the whole coin flip thing and
Oh yeah.
potentially doubling the prize pot. You're just adding on an idol, which is pretty innocuous, I guess, and then the potential risk of going home, which feels on a 50-50 coin flip, which feels pretty beast, which still also feels like something Mr. Beast would come up with. Like, yeah, I absolutely agree that like if you were to ask me to get if you were to tell me without me knowing that Mr. Beast was going to be on the season, that he came up with a twist and asked me to guess what it would be, and I were to assume that he had complete creative control and that any idea that he said was going to be accepted, I would probably guess something more along the lines of who wants to take $100,000 to self eliminate. I don't think that would have been an idea that if he had come up with it, Jeff would have allowed. And so maybe this whole ordeal wasn't Mr. Beast's first idea. Maybe his first idea was more in line with that. Jeff said, "No, that's a hard line. We're not going there." But I do think that Mr. Beast came up with this twist. I fully believe that. Aside from it being similar to Do or Die, I think it's more similar to something Mr. Beast would come up with than something that Jeff or the Survivor production team in general would necessarily come up with. Um, or at least it feels like a pretty even combination of the two to an extent, where maybe there was some collaboration. Definitely Mr. Beast had a hand in this. It just, this whole twist, the idea, concept behind it, to me has Mr. Beast written all over it. Um, so I don't know that I necessarily agree with your little conspiracy theory. I'd be
You know
more.
what? That's the beauty of a thing like this podcast is we can have this debate of like, yeah, is that reasonable? You know what? You're probably right too. Your logic tracks. It is still well within the realm of Mr. Beast, and I guess I didn't consider the fact that he probably threw out a couple of ideas that got shot down first.
I don't think.
Whereas like,
Yeah, I don't think Jeff is letting any sort of twist be introduced where people are encouraged to quit the game. I mean, I have to have some
well,
faith. Now, at the same time, willingly putting your game into a 50-50 gamble feels as close to quitting as you could possibly get without quitting almost. Uh, so that's a little bit concerning, but at the end of the day, I don't think Jeff would have been okay with the full on take money to quit. Anywho, anything else to add on about this whole Mr. Beast ordeal?
Um, no, other than just I suppose it's good that we didn't like just get this on the last episode of the season.
That
Some kind of
is nice.
world where Mr. Beast showed up on final episode and was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, guys, someone it just made it to final four because you flipped a coin." You know,
Yeah.
that's always something that I'm gonna have a gripe with Do or Die. It's just how much later into the game than it needs to be. This I guess there was at least still 10 people left. I'll say one plus. We have enough rounds left that this didn't decide the game, or didn't in fact it like decide the outcome of certain events enough that I think it will decide who wins the season. You know, I don't think Stephanie going home is a precursor to, you know, it
Unless,
being Sri or Ozzy or Rizzo or Aubrey specifically winning, right? I don't think it's that instance in time we're gonna look back on and go, oh, because of this Mr. Beast coin, so and so won the game,
yeah,
and Stephanie went home.
off chance that Rick Devens ends up winning and his idol plays a significant role in that, in which case you'd have to give Mr. Beast a little bit of credit, but you know. I would say the idol is honestly like the least egregious part of this twist, so
Yeah, and that's another thing. We mentioned this. I mentioned this to you before the podcast. Like we were just kind of chatting, and I was like, "Here's an idea: flip the coin, double the prize pot if you get correct. You get an idol, and heck, we'll even say you're safe tonight. Instead of being out of the game, you lose your vote at this tribal council. Everyone knows it. That's a fact. You don't get a say. And then
oh,
heck, let's say you get banished to being in like a, you know, I guess weird situation where you lose your vote at tribal council to no merit, like not even like you got to attempt safety, just flat out you lose your vote.
oh
Even that on
this.
itself still sounds egregious in my head. And when I vocalize this, what was your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction is make them vote for themselves.
It's like we have to think of silly things because nothing that we've seen has made sense. So like, I don't know.
Hey,
I just
at least honestly, honestly, even if they had to vote for themselves, it would then just be a better version of the. Well, not a better version. It would still be better than the stupid Jimmy Fallon twist, because at least the risk and reward would be more even, as opposed to the reward, stupid and situational at best. The the risk, your entire fucking life. Fuck you, you're dead.
okay, drama queen, but I do have to agree with your point. That would have been a much better time to, hey, by the way, vote yourself. And then Jimmy Fallon's shtick could have been, oh, hey, by the way, I don't know, you win this advantage or you're removed from the game.
Sent directly to the Tonight Show.
Yeah. You're going on a one-way ticket to the Tonight Show to announce on live television that you are now out of Survivor
Yippee!
in front of a studio audience of hundreds and hundreds of people that will all laugh and point because you couldn't solve a basic puzzle. Oh no.
Can you imagine Jimmy Fallon hosting Survivor? Like at tribal councils, just laughing at everything everyone says for no reason.
No. I can't because I won't imagine this. I refuse.
Somebody's talking about how they feel like their life is on the line and how they feel like there's no hope, and they've tried creating inroads with people and pushing other potential plans, but it just doesn't seem to be working. And Jimmy Fallon's just there laughing his fucking ass off. Oh my god, buddy! I think that'd be great.
No. Please no. Um
Um.
I got two things for you
Okay.
before we wrap. Uh thing number 1. There was a fact said by Stephanie in this episode that is just incorrect. Any ideas what this was?
I don't remember. what Stephanie said. That doesn't surprise me though.
It is now my favorite Stephanie fact. She doesn't even remember the amount of times she's had her torch snuffed, bro. How many times does Stephanie play the game Survivor?
This would be your fourth.
How many times has she had her torch snuffed?
Twice.
She said she had her torch snuffed 4 times.
So actually.
So about that, how many times did you get to the end of the game?
Yeah, silly Stephanie. To be fair,
Yeah,
this is her fourth time losing.
Yes, correct statement.
So there you go.
You know,
Thanks.
we've righted the wrongs, and now Stephanie can sail off into the sunset of Survivor. Yeah. Number 2. I don't know if y'all heard about this. There is potential speculation, aka I found this online on a lot of places. It's not very speculative at all. But did you know that we already know who said the episode title?
Oh.
Because it was in the preview for next episode.
I forget. I don't know what the episode title is, even so.
Everyone will be shooketh, which Rick said
Oh,
in confessional, and I'm
okay.
like
Yes.
99.9% sure it was in the preview. How often does that happen? Because I don't remember the last time where like it was so blatantly screamed out. Last sequence of the entire preview is episode title.
I have no idea. I'm certain it's happened before. It's probably happened this very season. But good for Rick getting his much deserved episode title. I'm hopeful for a very Rickful episode.
I mean, I think it would be kind of ambitious to expect it not to be an exciting Rick episode, given in the episode synopsis itself, it's been described as one of the craziest tribals of all time.
And he's got an
So,
idol.
and he has an idol, an actual idol, instead of the third that some people have at some points thought he has found. Uh, Given one of them was not real and one of them he did not find, this is the first actual Rick idol that Rick has actually had on season 50.
Good job, Rick.
And there had to be less players left than episodes passed for it to actually happen.
Hell yeah. And I'm happy for him. And I'm excited to see how he puts it to use. Or maybe he goes home with it in his pocket and then we cry.
don't don't will this, bro. Don't will this into reality.
I just know next episode's gonna be pretty exciting. Um but we'll have to find out when we watch it. Hope you guys all enjoyed this episode, and we hope you guys all enjoy the next episode of Survivor. I believe that's really all that there's to talk about. So, with that being said, the pod has spoken.